Chapter 11 of Deltora Quest. Beware. Many hours later, feeling as though he were living in a dream, Leif was marching east along the road leading away from Del. Barda strode beside him, silent, upright, and strong, a completely different person from the shambling, mumbling wreck who had haunted the gates of the forge for as long as Leif could remember. They had left Del unnoticed by creeping through a hole in the wall that Leif had not known existed, so cleverly was it disguised. Now the city, his parents, and everything he knew were far behind him, and with every step he was moving towards a place whose very name had made him sweat with fear. He told himself, "The forests of silence strike a special terror in my heart, for they are near, and I have heard tales of them all my life, but it is certain that the other places on the map are just as deadly in their own way." The idea did not comfort him in the least. For the first hour after leaving the city, he had walked with his hand on his sword, his heart thumping. But they met no one, and for a long time now he had been concentrating only on moving quickly, keeping up with Barda's long strides. He was determined not to be the one to call for rest. Determined, too, not to speak first, though his head was teeming with questions. They came to a place where a small road branched off the main one to the right, crossing a little wooden bridge and then winding away into the darkness. Barda stopped. "I believe that this is the path to Wendell, and the shortest way to the forest," he said. "The turning fits the description I was given, but there should be a signpost, and there is none." Tall trees rose around them, but no leaves rustled. The silence was heavy and complete. It was as if the land was holding its breath, waiting for them to decide what to do. The clouds parted for a moment, and the moon's ghostly light beamed down on them. Looking around, Leif saw a tiny glimmer of white on the ground by the side of the road. He moved to it quickly, knelt down, and then beckoned to Barda. "It is here," he called excitedly, scrabbling among the dead leaves. "Someone has pushed it over to keep the way secret." The signpost lay flat on the ground, almost covered by leaves and small plants. Leif brushed away the last of the leaves and then sat back on his heels with a gasp as he saw what was underneath. Wendell is written underneath, but it says, "Beware." Someone has tried to warn other travelers of danger along this path. No doubt the sign was not pushed over to hide the way, but to hide the warning, Barda muttered. Leif stood up slowly, glancing behind him. Suddenly the silence seemed thick and heavy, pressing in on him. He became aware that his companion was watching him, frowning. "This path will save us a day and a half if we take it," Barda said. "But perhaps I should not lead you into certain peril when we have just begun." All at once Leif was very angry, with Barda for seeing his fear, with himself for showing fear, and most of all for the unknown enemy who had so craftily hidden the secret sign. "You do not have to guard my safety any longer, Barda," he said loudly, kicking at the leaves. "A shortcut is too precious to waste. We're prepared for trouble now. We will watch for danger as we go." "Very well," said Barda, turning away. "As you wish." His voice was calm and level as always. Leif could not tell if he was pleased or sorry. They turned to the right, crossed the little bridge, and went on. The road twisted, narrowed, and became darker. Tall, thick bushes lined it on both sides. Their leaves were large, smooth, and stiff, with strange, pale veins showing almost white against the dark green. They had not gone far before the back of Leif's neck began to prickle. He turned his head slightly, and from the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse of something gleaming through the leaves. It was a pair of red eyes, glinting in the moonlight. Controlling his urge to shout, he touched Barda's arm. "I see them," Barda muttered. "Draw your sword, but keep walking. Look to the front. Be ready." Leif did as he was told, his whole body tingling with alarm. He saw another pair of eyes, and another, and soon it seemed the whole path was lined with burning points of light, but still there was no sound. He gritted his teeth. The hand that held the sword was slippery with sweat. "What are they? What are they waiting for?" he hissed to Barda. As he spoke, something skittered across the road behind him. He swung around just in time to see a creature disappearing into the bushes, a bent, pale, scuttling thing that seemed all legs and arms. His skin crawled. "Look ahead," hissed Barda, furiously dragging on his arm to make him move again. "Didn't I tell you?" And then the humming began. The sound was soft at first. It came from all around them, filling the air. A high, whining hum, as if a giant swarm of flying insects had suddenly invaded the road. But no insects were to be seen, only the dark green of the leaves and the eyes watching and the sound, which grew louder and louder with every step they took, so that soon their heads were filled with it and their ears began to ache and ring. And still the sound rose, high, piercing, unbearable. Desperate to shut it out, they clapped their hands to their ears and bent their heads against it, walking fast, faster, breaking into a run. Their feet thudded on the endless path. Their breath came hard and panting. Their hearts beat like thunder, but they were aware of nothing but the pain of the sound that rose and rose, piercing their brains, driving out every thought. They ran, weaving and stumbling, desperate to escape it, but there was no escape. They cried out for help, but they could not even hear their own voices. Finally, they fell exhausted to lie writhing, helpless in the dust. The sound rose to an agonizing wail of triumph. The leaves thrashed and rustled. A host of pale, lanky creatures with hot red eyes scuttled toward them, and in moments they were covered. Leaf woke slowly, with no idea of where he was or how much time had passed. There was a dull ringing in his ears. His throat was raw, and every muscle in his body was aching. I'm alive, he thought with dull surprise. How is it that I'm alive? He struggled to think, though his brain seemed clouded by a thick fog. The last he remembered was running with Barda along the Wendell path, his head bursting with sound, and after that, blankness. Or was there? He seemed to remember a dream of needle-sharp stinging pains all over his body, a dream of being poked and prodded by thin, hard fingers, a dream of being carried, jolting on bony shoulders, a dream of shrill tittering and muttering while night turned into day and day to night again. A terrible dream, but had it been a dream, or had it been real? Had it been all real? He was lying on his back. Light slanted through the branches high above him. It's day now, then, Leaf thought drowsily. Late afternoon by the look of it, but which afternoon? How long have I been unconscious? Where am I? He heard a groan nearby, and he tried to turn his head. It was only then that he realized he could not move. Panic seized him. He tried to lift his hands, his feet, but he could not even twitch a finger. How could they have bound me so completely, he thought stupidly. And slowly, horribly, the answer came to him. He had not been tied up at all. His body was simply refusing to move at his will. What has happened? He cried aloud in terror. They stung us, as wasps sting caterpillars, as spiders sting flies. Barda's voice was thick and slow, but Leaf recognized it. He realized it was Barda who had groaned. Barda was lying near to him, helpless as he was. The creatures have paralyzed us so that we still live, but cannot move, Barda's voice went on. They will be back, and then they will feast. Again he groaned. We were fooled to ignore the warning sign, and I am to blame. I cannot imagine a weapon where we could not fight, but that sound, no one could stand against it. I cannot understand why the guards in Dell did not speak of it. Perhaps because they did not know. Perhaps no one who has ever heard the sound has lived to tell of it, said Leaf. Leaf, I have led you to your death. Leaf licked his dry lips. It's not your fault. We took the road together, and we're not dead yet. Barda, where are we? The answer came slowly and before, and when it came, it filled Leaf's heart with dread. They carried us a long way, Barda said weakly. I think we are in the forest of silence. Leaf closed his eyes, trying to fight the wave of despair that was sweeping over him, and then a thought came to him. Why? Why bring us here, to a place so far from their home? Because, called a new voice, you are too great a prize for the Wen alone. They have brought you as an offering for their god. The Wenbar likes fresh meat. It will come when the sun goes down. There was a rustle from the tree above, and as lightly as a butterfly, a wild-haired girl landed on the ground right beside Leaf's head.